In today's video, we have a variety of NHL news updates, including some trade rumors focusing on teams like the Pens, Sens, Rangers, and Kings. Plus, we have some other NHL news to discuss, including a scary situation that happened at Calgary Flames practice. The injury bug continues to take a bite out of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And plus, could Ron Maclean actually be leaving Hockey Night in Canada? We'll discuss all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back here to Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news updates to discuss here today. I want to get started first of all with a scary situation that happened in the latest practice of the Calgary Flames, where they saw defenseman TJ Brodie collapse on the ice and go into convulsions. Really scary situation. Fortunately, TJ Brodie was attended to by the medical staff, and the players on the ice were trying to help very, very quickly. They got him off to hospital, and he seems to be doing okay. He's been since released and has been sent home. At this point, they've run several tests. At this point, all the tests have come back normal, so they're really not drawing any conclusions just yet as to exactly what caused everything. But that is going to cause him to be out of the lineup here for potentially an extended period of time. There's really no timetable on a return for TJ Brodie to the Calgary Flames. Like I said, fortunately for him, he seems to be doing better. He's home. So far, all tests are pointing to normal, but they're going to continue to go through a gamut of tests as they try to figure out what happened and discuss the best course of action for him moving forward. But it's certainly going to hurt their blue line, potentially, like I said, for an extended period while that's being evaluated and while he's waiting to try to come back and play. So certainly best wishes to TJ Brodie and his family. And it's a very scary situation, but at least seems to be coming out with a decent outcome here. So hopefully he's able to get back soon. Now, the injury bug continues to take a bite out of the Toronto Maple Leafs. We've already seen different situations this year where they've had several players out, including Travis Dermott and Zach Hyman to start the year. John Tavares was out for an extended time with a broken finger. Then Mitch Marner got hurt, and he's down, out for an extended time. And then now they find out that Alex Kerfoot's going to be out for an indefinite period of time as well after having surgery, some kind of a facial surgery, I believe it was. And then Trevor Moore was injured as well, and is now going to be out for a little while. He was hurt in their latest game versus the Boston Bruins. So the injury bug is certainly really taking its toll on Toronto. They continue to struggle. They've been losing more than they've been winning lately. There's a lot of pressure on Mike Babcock. There's a lot of talk in the media whether or not Babcock is actually on the hot seat or not. We've seen NHL insiders like Elliot Friedman and Chris Johnson recently discuss the topic of Babcock and the possibility of him being dismissed as Toronto Maple Leafs head coach. They both have kind of had the same idea, same story, that they don't feel anything is imminent on that front. They both kind of say that the seat might be getting a little bit warm, but they don't feel that the Maple Leafs are anywhere close to making a decision that would be that big to let him go at this point. Clearly, the Leafs are struggling, but they seem to be running into the same issues over and over and over again. A lot of defensive lapses, and even though this team certainly has the ability to score a lot and is built for a lot of skill and a lot of offense, they're still having a lot of difficulties in their own end, and special teams are struggling hardcore as well. Obviously, a lot of that does fall back on the coach, but I think a lot of that also does fall back on the GM for the personnel that he's able to give Babcock to work with. So we'll see what the Leafs do, but I do think there is some pressure mounting on this team. Winning this year and making some progress in the playoffs was certainly really, really important and really high on their agenda. And right now things are not really looking up. They're not anywhere near what the expectations were. So we'll keep an eye on the situation and see if the Leafs can get things turned around. But obviously, as the Leafs struggle due to all the injuries, I really don't think there is as much pressure on Babcock as some people might like to think there is. But I can certainly see the possibility of the Leafs exploring a coaching change later into the year if things don't get turned around. Now, as I mentioned, could we actually see Ron Maclean leave Hockey Night in Canada? Of course, after the latest incident involving Don Cherry and Rogers Sportsnet parting ways with the longtime hockey broadcaster, there's now word from a report from Steve Simmons of the Toronto Sun indicating that when Hockey Night in Canada goes on the air this weekend on Saturday night, that Ron Maclean might not actually be there, and he's actually contemplating leaving the program now. And apparently, he's not contemplating leaving, hockey broadcasting or his job with Sportsnet altogether. The report indicates that they have word that he would like to remain with them and still do his hometown hockey on Sundays. Obviously, that's a very popular program. Ron Maclean gets to travel across Canada, hitting up different communities, doing a different side of the game in the more local aspect. So the report indicates that they feel that he still would want to do that, but not be on the Saturday program with Hockey Night in Canada, and do the first intermission segment as well as hosting of the evening program for the early game. So I guess we will see how much truth there is to that, but some feel that perhaps he's having a little bit of guilt. But after the Coach's Corner segment where Don Cherry made those comments that ultimately ended up getting him fired from the job, Ron Maclean during that segment was kind of seen nodding along, and most people kind of felt like he was looked like he was in agreement with Cherry, but then he issued an apology, and Cherry was not real pleased as well. He even said in interviews afterwards that he felt Ron Maclean kind of buried him, but they're still friends, and that obviously to some degree he probably understood that Ron Maclean was probably doing what he had to do to make sure that he wasn't in any further trouble. But at the same time, after working together all that long, maybe there's some guilt getting to him, and he feels guilty about kind of throwing Don under the bus and obviously feeling bad about everything that's gone down. So I guess we will see, obviously with Don Cherry certainly not being a part of the program anymore. If Ron Maclean were to leave as well, it's certainly going to throw a whole new dynamic on the Saturday program and could certainly make things be very, very different. So I guess it'll be interesting to see if Ron Maclean is indeed on Hockey Night in Canada this Saturday, or how this is going to proceed and if he's going to come back or not. The recent reports indicate here that the Senators don't want to have any public comments on the situation with JeanGabriel Pageau. Clearly, Pageau is a pending unrestricted free agent, is having a tremendous year, and after all the number of players that they've had, come through that organization and leave as unrestricted free agents or be traded in the last couple of years, the Senators really don't want to get into a situation and talking about it with the media or publicly in any capacity. So it's not clear exactly what their intentions are. Of course, Pageau will be a 27-year-old unrestricted free agent who's having a really solid year after having a hot start. He's got 11 goals now, but hard to say how much of that will be able to be maintained and sustained over an extended period of time. Throughout his career, he's a 30 to 40 point player, usually average about 14, 15 goals a year. Normally can be a third line center, play pretty strong defensive hockey, and certainly can be a very valuable member. So if the Senators do go down the road of trading Pageau, they should be able to get a pretty decent return. But at the same time, he's still young enough that he could be very well part of the rebuild, and it's not quite clear exactly if he's wanting to stick around with them to go through that, or if they're intending on wanting to resign him either way. Either way, Pageau will be one of the more interesting players to watch here as we approach the deadline later into the season. As we recently learned as well, Sidney Crosby is going to be out for an extended period of time for the Pittsburgh Penguins, around 6 weeks or more. And General Manager Jim Rutherford has made it adamantly clear that he does not have any intentions to go out and make a trade due to the Crosby injury. Now, in the past, whenever Crosby's been out, we've really seen Malkin usually take his game to another level. And so far this year, they've gone through enough other injuries, and a lot of other players, like we've seen in the past with this organization, seem to step up, and they always seem to manage to get through and battle through. Now, of course, right now, the Penguins are sitting in a decent spot in the standings, but they don't have much of a buffer. If they were to go in any kind of extended losing streak, that certainly could knock them out of the playoff picture and make it tougher to battle back in later on, even once Crosby returns. So I guess we will see what happens, but for right now, according to Jim Rutherford, he has no intentions of making any acquisitions due to this injury. Dennis Bernstein of the fourthperiod.com is indicating that the Rangers and Kings have been scouting each other a fair bit as of late, and those two teams don't have any games lined up for an extended period of time, so it leads one to believe that they might be having exploratory trade talks. Of course, both teams are not having great starts to their season. Both teams have been in the rumor mill with a variety of rumors and a variety of players that might be available for some time, so certainly a couple of teams to keep your eye on. Not real sure that it would make sense based on looking at their rosters and team needs exactly what the trade might be between the two teams that they very well might be exploring and discussing, but it's certainly an interesting situation to keep your eye on. Both teams are in awkward spots in the standings with nowhere to go but up, and a trade very well could end up rejuvenating one of these rosters. Now, in the Kings case, we've got everybody from Ilya Kovalchuk to Tyler Toffoli to Alec Martinez to Trevor Lewis to Kyle Clifford, who very well could be moved. Even Jonathan Quick for the right deal would be a player that the Kings would be interested in. And then the Rangers Rangers' perspective, well, they have a lot of younger players that likely wouldn't be moved, but they do have a guy like Chris Kreider, who's been in and out of the rumor mill as well over the last number of weeks, where he's a pending unrestricted free agent as well. So I guess we will see what happens. But these two teams, according to Dennis Bernstein, have been scouting each other quite a bit and very well might be having some talks behind the scenes for a potential deal. So, of course, as always, I want to know your thoughts and opinions and everything discussed here today. Let me know what your thoughts are on all today's news topics, and we can discuss further in the comments section. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.